and welcome to Story Dev. My name is Luke, also known as TNRA, and welcome back to another episode of Story Creator. We're going to be continuing off from our last video, continuing generating our forms as necessary, and actually getting some results on screen a bit later on. So, just continuing on from what we did last time. So we implemented a checkbox in our date picker, form date time, and we're just continuing on from here, generating things for the form number and all of the other components that we need for generating forms. So once again, with our float, we've got our numeric up down, we're getting the value control as you can see, and setting some defaults up there. For the integer, we've got a drop down. So there's going to be two different ways in which integers can be displayed. So it might be a drop down perhaps because we actually want to get, say, a source, a custom source, which is the reason for the search relationship functionality, or at least one of the reasons. So here what we're going to be doing is of course getting the value control as normal, and we're going to be looking at the references here just to double check and see what's going on. So the first thing we're going to be doing in order to get that implemented is to create this method here, which is going to return us a string, or function technically speaking, and we're just going to use one of these for now in order to just test something. I don't believe I actually test it later. We're just going to take a look here at the custom reference source. Now, of course, this is technically being called in the context of when we actually sync the field, and here I'm actually thinking to myself, actually, the way that I'm currently doing it is not actually appropriate, so I get rid of that. I'm going to actually start constructing the components, something that will be required later. So here we do basically the same thing. However, what we instead do is we store the values that we input into sync field inside of a tuple, which is what we're going to be doing here. So we're going to set up a member field here and call it synced fields. Create that, and we are simply just going to see if the last used structure name, which may be appropriate, and we're going to use that for creating our tuple. And in here we're just going to get that newly created list and add all of that information that we got from calling sync field name, display text, and display as. So here we're going to iterate over all of the synced fields. And here I'm wondering if it's better to use the currently used forms text. That's the actual name of the form, because we actually still need to find out how to retrieve certain things, how to acquire the necessary forms when we actually construct all of the components for the form. Just resetting that up there. Of course need to make sure that we actually use the last used structure there. So we're using the current form text to set the tuple list and acquire that. And the reason we need that is, of course, we actually need to know what form we're actually going to be adding these constructed components into. And then once we've got that form, we can iterate over each of the fields and use that in this context here. So we've got field item 1, item 2, item 3, item 4, like that, right? And of course, like I said, this tuple that we've created will now in fact be used to actually create and construct the form itself. Going back here, going to double check and make sure that we actually retrieve the values from our JEngine or or the JavaScript interpreter. Here I am trying to find a way to actually acquire the object, so I'm not actually sure what function is actually going to return me the results of that value. Eventually I just go for what I believe might be correct, but again, I don't actually test this in this video. To object there. And the last thing we look for is our custom display reference, which is of course literally just a series of items there. So once again, setting that up as normal, going back down to our numeric, we're just going to copy from what we had previously. We're not going to have any decimal places because this is an integer. Next thing is the string. So there, of course, there's two different string displays, as you probably are aware from the last video. So we've got our single text and multi-line as well. So we'll set all that up. Same with multi-line text as well, of course, like I said. Here we're of course just making sure that we actually pass in the correct value there, so that we don't mess that up. So here we're going to have the ability to show a form, obviously. We obviously want to show a form, right? And this is going to be a simple test. We're almost done in order to actually start our test properly. So in here, we're going to create a new button, put it next to the combo box here. And this is literally just going to allow us to open the form and preview our results from our scripts. Here I'm just setting the last used structure to define for the defined form name. This will be useful later. Here I'd like to actually show that form now. So I've got the structure followed by the actual structures. The structure name is going to be there. Of course, that's an enumerator. And then we get our defined form name, as you can see there, for show form. And we should, in theory, be almost ready for actually scripting and making things ready. The last thing we need to do, of course, is actually set up JEngine with the necessary values that we need to create form and sync field. And we're also going to need those field display values for allowing us to actually display options that we need for the sync field method. And we should be about done now. We should be able to test and check if it all works. Just got a little bit of a problem here because I accidentally forgot to implement one of those methods for the one of the form components. But we go into one of our files here, and we're just going to create a quick test, create form meditation events, and we're going to sync some fields. Just make sure I'm actually know what I'm doing, of course. So we're just going to sync a few fields here, and we're going to test that. No problems. And here we are. We've got an actual form on screen, and it's actually working for almost the first time round, which is crazy to think. But that is pretty much it for form generation. So thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. So in the next video, we're actually going to be able to, we should be looking at the ability to set properties for each of our different form components, and we're going to add more things as time moves on, being able to wrap our forms over tab controls and perhaps more customization as well. And we'll just keep on going like that. So once again, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.